Hello all. So this is for the digestive system. So if we take a look at the digestive system, it does four main functions. The first one is it ingests food. That means you get food into your body. The second is then you need to use that food and find a way to break it down so that you can get the nutrients and things out of it. Then the third function is to then absorb those molecules and those nutrients into your bloodstream so they can be delivered to all of your cells and parts of your body that need them so you can continue to do catabolic and anabolic reactions. And then anything that's left after you've broken down the food you've eaten and you've absorbed all of those nutrients, then the digestive system will hold and then eventually rid the body of those indigestible remains. So mainly that's just solid waste. And as you'll learn in the excretory system, that's really where you get rid of your non-solid waste. So this is really looking at just ridding the body of solid waste that's left over after you've gotten all of the nutrients and things out of your body. The digestive system is broken down into two main parts. One is called the alimentary canal, which sometimes is referred to as the donut hole, because if you kind of think of your body, you do have a hole that runs down through the middle of your body, which makes your digestive tract. This is continuous muscular digestive tubing that winds through the body. It's made of smooth muscle. It digests and absorbs the food particles. That's its main job. And this will contain the following organs in order. So on your sheet, you would see that you have your oral cavity / mouth of where you're going to chew up. And here in a second, we'll talk about physical digestion. You're going to break the food down. It's going to go down through this tube called the esophagus to your stomach. From the stomach, it's going to be broken down and goes into the small, then the large intestines, and then finally it's stored in the rectum until it's removed from your body. The accessory digestive organs aid in digestion, but the food does not go through these parts. These are things like your teeth, your tongue, your salivary glands, your liver, your gallbladder, and your pancreas. All these play a role by either helping break the food down physically or chemically. Okay, so there are five parts, sorry, of the digestive process. So first, you ingest the food, which means you eat it, you get it into your body. Propulsion, which is now the food is going to be moved through the digestive tract. The digestion of the food, so now breaking it down into smaller and smaller pieces and into nutrients that can be absorbed that are small enough to be absorbed into the bloodstream. That's where absorption comes in. You need to be able to then get that stuff into the bloodstream so that it can be delivered to your cells, and then defecation or removal of the waste that is no longer useful. There are two types of digestion. There's mechanical digestion and chemical. Mechanical digestion, sometimes called physical, is you're physically breaking down the food. So this involves things like chewing, churning of the stomach, which smashes and mixes it up. Food is changed physically, but the key is not chemically. So you're just essentially increasing surface area, really, so that the chemical process can come next and that the enzymes can easily break down the food. So I tell kids it's kind of like if you think ice. You learned hopefully at one time about surface area where you say, okay, if I take ice cubes, big ice cubes, and I put them in a glass of water, they're not going to melt as fast as crushed ice. Crushed ice will melt faster because there's more surface area. So therefore, more surface area means it's gonna get broken down faster. Chemical process or chemical digestion is then what involves digestive enzymes that comes from the glands, which is where a lot of the accessory organs come in. Some of your accessory organs are for mechanical digestion to physically break down the food, and then you have some of your accessory organs, which are glands that secrete these enzymes to break down the different types of food that you have. Okay, so in class at this point, we split up the digestive tract, did a little bit of research on each one, and kids had to present for this part of your notes or diagram where kids could just write a couple bullets of what each part does. Those can actually be found now on these slides, which are after this. I'm just gonna, you're probably gonna want to pause this if you want to write down more, but the oral cavity or mouth really has a couple key parts to it. Okay, it's got your teeth and your tongue, which are really for the mechanical breakdown, but you also have salivary glands. Salivary glands contain an enzyme called amylase, and that's the thing that first starts breaking down carbohydrates, so like starches and sugars, which actually makes it so you can taste a lot of the food that you eat. So your oral cavity, I would write down that know that you have the teeth, the tongue, the salivary glands. This is where um, mechanical digestion begins, as well as some minor chemical. And then you also, at the back of it, you have what's called your epiglottis. The epiglottis is the flat-like structure that's going to flip back and forth between your trachea and your esophagus. So here's your trachea, which remember is part of your respiratory system. Well, you don't want food and water going down that into your lungs. That's what makes you choke. If you've ever heard of people say it went down the wrong tube, that's because as they were taking a drink, they might have also inhaled and the body kind of gets confused. So this little epiglottis, this flap of skin that usually covers the windpipe to force the food down the esophagus to the stomach, would actually flip open to let air in, and some of that water or pop or whatever goes down too, and then now you're hacking and coughing trying to get it back out. So the epiglottis is kind of that trap door that controls which pathway is open in your neck at any given time, and it's really there to try and keep you from choking to death, essentially, or it getting in your windpipe. The esophagus is a long, about a 20 centimeter long, smooth muscle tube. So when you swallow, this will actually kind of, like I tell kids, think of like when you used to eat like one of those tube popsicles or a Go-Gurt, how you would put your hand down it and then kind of force it up to get it in your mouth. That's kind of what the esophagus does. So when you drink, you have a muscle contraction, which is going to squeeze the tube and then slide the food down to push it down to your stomach. Okay, this secretes mucus. That is called peristalsis. That's the kind of those waves of squeezing that push the food down. If acid from the stomach backs up into the esophagus, that's what causes what's often referred to as heartburn, where you can feel that burning sensation because stomach acid is way stronger than what the mucus can kind of take care of in the esophagus, because the mucus in the esophagus is really just to push help the food slide down and get down to your stomach. So then it causes a burning sensation that we call heartburn. Your stomach is a J-shaped kind of muscular bag, and both mechanical and chemical digestion take here, because yes, you do have a lot of stomach, what we call stomach acid, which is all full of all these digestive juices that help break down proteins and lipids, and you got hydrochloric acid that kills any bacteria and stuff that gets in your stomach. However, your stomach is also going to be squeezing and pulsing and doing all this stuff, which is constantly mixing up the food to also physically or mechanically break it down, as well as chemically break it down. So at the end of your stomach digesting your food, you have kind of this watery, sludgy, kind of gross mixture, which is called chyme. And what that is it's a whole bunch of watery food that's been broken down, and now that watery fluid full of food and everything else is also full of a bunch of free nutrients and stuff that can be absorbed by the intestines, which is where it's going to go next. Okay, the small intestine then is about 7 meters long, has all these villi and stuff in it, right, that are going to increase surface area again, so that your body can absorb as many of the nutrients in your food as you can. So all those nutrients, the reason this is really long is as it's moving through here, it's just going to absorb as much of the nutrients and stuff as possible. Okay, it absorbs about 80% of the water and a lot of the vitamins, nutrients, stuff like that. Okay, then it goes into your large intestine, which is the last part, which is actually going to absorb what the small intestine doesn't, but it also absorbs a lot more of the water. It's kind of the last keep you hydrated, get as much of the water as it can. The rectum is actually considered to be the short storage area or the very end of the large intestine where anything, once you've taken all the nutrients out, all the minerals, all the water back out, then you're left with whatever your body isn't going to use or need. And then we call that feces, and that's what is stored in the rectum until it's removed from the body. Okay, so there you go. So it absorbs water and really concentrates waste. Some of the accessory organs that come up is like, let's say, these aren't part of it, but they include the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, stuff like that. The liver sits right here by your stomach, and it actually plays a pretty important role in that it produces bile. Bile is essentially it helps break down fat. It also helps filter out toxins such as drugs and alcohol and things through this process. So it plays a help. It helps with chemical digestion. Gallbladder is where what stores, and you can see it right here, right under the liver. So the liver makes a bunch of the bile. The gallbladder just stores it until it can secrete it into the stomach as part in the intestines as part of this digestion process. And then you have your pancreas, which sits over here. And this actually plays a really important role. Not only does it help with producing insulin, which is used to control your blood sugar, but it also produces a lot of enzymes that help break down fats and carbs and stuff like that. Another side note is it also creates sodium bicarbonate, which is it's a base. So at the end of digestion, the pancreas will actually also help secrete into the stomach sodium bicarbonate, which if you've ever taken Tums, that's what sodium bicarbonate is. It's a base that's going to neutralize the acid before it moves on, so it's not as strong and doesn't like hurt your intestines and stuff like that. So it also helps neutralize kind of that chyme, that mixture of nutrients and water and stuff, to make it so it's not super acidic as it moves through your body. Then the pancreas kind of helps do that. So there you go. There are some of the references, and hopefully that'll help you answer the questions. All right, thanks a lot.